No. Okay. So good evening to everyone.
Good evening.
I'd like to welcome you to the Parma Greece United Church of Christ, where no matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. I'm Pastor Jessie Lou Vaccarelli, and I'm very pleased that you've all chosen to join us this evening for this informational and inspiring presentation. Before I introduce our special guest, I want to mention three things. First, if you have a cell phone, please put it on silent mode or turn it off completely so that there are no interruptions to the presentation. Second thing is, this is a free event. There is no charge. However, if you feel inspired to make a donation to support Pastor Jen's efforts, there's a receptacle in the lobby, and there'll also be one down in the fellowship hall, which is a nice segue to the fact that every single one of you is invited to join us for supper. We have an awesome and amazing international buffet set up down in the fellowship hall. So as you leave the sanctuary, just follow the hall till you get to the end. I know most of you have already seen it. And down that hall is also where the restrooms are located. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce Pastor Jen, Reverend Jennifer Lessard, who is the pastor at York Baptist Church and is also the Special Assistant to International Ministries. So can we please give her a warm welcome?
So if you'd have told me 10 years ago that this would be happening, Pastor Jessie Lou and I know each other for a long time. So
Yes.
I am really glad that all of you are here. Thank you for joining us. I am a pastor part-time at York Baptist Church, and I am also a part-time missionary. I work with American Baptist International Ministries as a special assistant to Ecuador. So I would like to introduce you to a unique program called Walking Together. In Spanish, that's Caminando Juntos. It is a partnership between York Baptist Church and the indigenous people of Ecuador, as well as some other organizations, including international ministries. I will point out the scripture you see on your slide. Creation itself will be set free from its enslavement to decay and will obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God, as the Apostle Paul. Next slide. Our partnership is primarily with the Sinchi Warmi women of the community of Rio Blanco. They live in the Andes at about 12,000 feet. They are protectors of their land and culture, which are intrinsically intertwined. There is no separation between land and the social fabric. Next slide, please. We have another partner in Ecuador that's forming as an NGO this year in 2024 called Global View. Next slide. They are an organization that handles both academic and civil issues. They're committed to change and social justice through art, culture, and the defense of nature as a means to achieve full peace. They support resistances as a means to build a re-existence. They added that word, re-existence. I love that. In a better world. Through alliances, experiences, and commitments, various activities are developed in a complementary manner. And it's really a great experience working with Global View. Next slide, please. Global View is the one who organizes our immersion trips that travel to Ecuador twice a year. They work on plans for community reconstruction, which I'll speak more to in a few minutes. And they work on citizenship building through art and peace. There is a QR code here on the screen. There will also be handouts afterwards that has a full video explaining all the details about Global View, which I'm not going to get into tonight. There's a lot about that organization. Next slide, please. So York Baptist Church, who are we and why are we involved with Indigenous people in Ecuador? We are a very tiny, progressive rural church in Livingston County. We are part of the Association for Welcoming and Affirming Baptists, and we are, when I say we're small, we have 20 people in worship on Sunday on a busy day. We're tiny, and most of them are 5th, 6th, 7th generation. Next slide, please. Part of the reason we've chosen the name Walking Together for this program comes from the scripture of Amos 3:3. Do two walk together unless they have an appointment? The Hebrew word for appointment is actually a little more involved than just the word appointment. It's ya'ad, which means a covenant. So it's much more than an appointment or agreement. It's covenantal language, very much like we experience in church. Next slide, please. So, walking together or caminando juntos, how did I get involved in all of this? I don't travel. This is very new to me. It's been less than 2 years that I've been involved with them. I went on an immersion experience in January of 2023. This is me experiencing the Amazon rainforest for the first time, getting my face painted. I don't know if I look overwhelmed in this picture, but I am. We took our first hike through the rainforest during that trip. It was about 6 hours, and it was grueling. And I can't wait to do it again. Next slide, please. We also traveled up to the Andes to visit, at 12,000 feet, the community of Rio Blanco. The community of Rio Blanco is being devastated by gold mining right now and has been dealing with this for about 30 years. This is our group hiking towards the gold mine. At 12,000 feet, I can do a lot of things, like I can plant and I can do a lot of things, but hiking up to the gold mine, that was not me. So I stayed down and planted while they visited the gold mine and got a tour. Next slide, please. So what happened after my immersion trip? We invited Eloy Alfaro, who's from Global View, to come up to our church and speak in March of 2023. And with him, he brought a letter from the Sinchiborbi women, an invitation to be siblings in their defense of their land and culture from predatory gold mining. Like any good church would do, we talked about it for a couple months. It went through committees. Even in the world of Baptists, we have committees. We responded. We responded with a letter back to them, which I delivered to them in May of 2023, saying, yes, we are committed to your plight, your families, your social fabric. It's important to us as a Christian concern. Next slide, please. As I've mentioned, Walking Together has evolved a lot since the beginning. We have a lot of organizations involved, including Global View. International Ministries is a very large American Baptist organization. They're 200 years old. We also ally with universities in Ecuador and here. Next slide, please. So there's 4 communities we've interacted with so far. In the Andes, we have Rio Blanco, and this is the southeastern end of the Andes. In the rainforest, it's the Siapopai people who are dealing with oil. On the coast is Puerto Cabello. They are dealing with predatory fishing enterprises, and they are also trying to protect marine life. And in the Northeast Andes, we have Atavelo, and I am wearing clothes that are from Atavelo. They are dealing with some cultural suppression. They're on the northwest end of the Andes. Rio Blanco in the Andes struggles to save its land from gold mining. Next slide, please. The rainforest people at the Central High have been dealing with predatory oil extraction and lumber extraction for the last 30 years. Next slide. The coastal people of Puerto Cabello are dealing with trying to save their culture from big corporate fishing organizations, and also trying to save coastal forests. And they also have a small government, a small community school, which the government refuses to recognize. The mothers teach in that school. Next slide, please. Atavelo, and this is the festival of Inti Raymi, the sun god festival, and I'll tell you more about that at dinner. I'll have a little teaser for you there. They are dealing with preserving their land, but also every time they have their festivals, the government sends tons of military up there because there's way too many indigenous people in one place. Wow. So their culture is suppressed. Next slide, please. So our focus with the Walking Together program is to heal and restore not just the land, but also the communities. We do see this as a Christian mandate. Jesus commands his followers to go into all the world and proclaim the good news to the whole creation. That's in Mark 16. Not just human beings, not just our people, but to all creation. Something to think about. Next slide, please. The Apostle Paul does follow up with this with the letter to the Romans. Creation itself will be set free from its enslavement to decay and will obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. Free from its enslavement of decay. Where does that decay come from? Next slide, please. So how do we heal these communities? We work on functional and financial support for community-led projects aimed at healing and restoring the land and the social fabric of these peoples. It looks like reforestation in Rio Blanco and helping the Sinchi Warmi with their jewelry business. The reforestation in Rio Blanco is critical because for 30 years, the gold mine stripped the land of water. The lagoons are gone, the rivers are gone, the plant life dried up, and the animals left. Reforestation helps restore the land. We've planted over 2,000 plants and trees in Rio Blanco, and we're actually seeing changes in the soil. Next slide, please. We also provide platforms for community leaders to speak their narratives locally, nationally, and worldwide. The leader of the Sinchi Warmi women is currently in Africa and Tanzania, and then she's heading to Iceland with some support from our group. It looks like supporting joint speaking events in Ecuador as well. I presented with Elizabeth at the University of Cuenca several months ago. On top, you see the Siacopai speaking publicly about their cultural practices that they're trying to reclaim. Next slide, please. It also gives Indigenous international platforms like conferences and radio programs. Elizabeth Durazno, the leader of Sinchi Warmi, was on WXXI Connections with Evan Dawson in August. And we had just an amazing experience with Evan Dawson. He let Elizabeth talk through a translator for about 30 minutes straight. There were no interruptions. He took one break because he had to for station identification. But it was really incredible. The recording is still on the Connections website if you're interested. It was August 14th. Next slide, please. We also provide practical support for the transfer of local knowledge within the communities to future generations. It looks like helping young people learn the ancestral face painting in the rainforest and selling t-shirts to youth so that they can learn. The thing I learned about the face painting when I was in the rainforest broke my heart, because along with the oil companies that came in the 70s, Baptist missionaries came to the rainforest at the same time. And the Siakopai welcomed hearing the gospel, being part of the church. However, what the Baptist missionaries did was they forbid their face painting practices. The face painting is an important part of their social fabric, as part of their spirituality. It is geography. It says where they hunt, where they find medicinal plants. There are messaging in the face painting that many have forgotten. The woman who's teaching the young people here is one of the few wise women, shaman, that still remember what the designs mean. So, as part of restoration, as a Baptist, I'm in the rainforest helping her teach young people what these designs mean. Next slide, please. It means spiritual support, which amplifies the community's existing connection to the land, their own spiritualities, avoiding some of the past mistakes of prior missionaries. It looks like being part of the family life and spiritual life of these communities and being available and present to them in joy and pain. My phone is on 24/7 contact with these indigenous communities. They struggle. Their families run into the same things we do. They have they have teenagers. They run into death threats because they're activists protecting their land. I'm also godmother to one of the Sinchi Warmi's children. It's Oliver. He's such a doll. I love him. Next slide, please. It also looks like being part of the family life. I couldn't resist a picture of my godson. And it's being part of these communities. It really is. You can see Elizabeth and I walking arm in arm. They jokingly call me a Viking because I'm a little bit bigger than most of the indigenous people there. You will see in this picture there's a design of food and flowers for their summer equinox in June. That's part of the Inti Raymi celebration. We want the indigenous people to celebrate their own spiritualities. Most of them are Christian, actually, but they integrate their indigenous spiritual practices with Christianity. So St. Mary will walk down the street in a parade right alongside of the sun god. St. Joe's there. There's a great mix there. I've learned so much and can't wait to learn more. Next slide, please. We partner with a diverse group of organizations, non-governmental organizations, universities. We build support for the communities and the methodologies involved in this type of restoration and healing. There's a lot of background work that goes along with this. When I go in October, I'm not going with a group. I'm going to build relationships with universities. I will be speaking at a seminary in Quito to explain what this looks like. There is a lot of connecting different organizations like Baptist Peace Fellowship of North America. They should know about these things. So I'm always looking to connect with other organizations. If you guys are already involved at the other organizations, you're interested, let me know, because this is a network. This is a network. Next slide, please. A really big part of what we do is immersion experiences. Experience matters. I wouldn't be doing this if I never took that first immersion trip. Now I go 3 times a year. We companion with members of communities actively. We learn about their daily lives by doing, touching the soil, working the lands, eating meals, and listening to their narratives. We are working in the chakra gardens in the rainforest, helping cut back the overgrowth. We're digging in the Andes, planting trees. We're sitting with them, eating their foods. We stay with the families. And it is a perspective that most people don't get to enjoy. It was really life-changing to see all of these different things. Next slide, please. These are pictures from the rainforest, and one of the great things about our last trip in June, Elizabeth Drasno is pictured here. She got to go to the rainforest with us. So she, from the Andes, got to connect with the women of the rainforest, and they have built a network. They're stronger together. Next slide, please. This is me working with students. After Nancy taught them how to draw the face painting designs, I walked around with the different kids. They're like, teach me some English. Okay. I taught them how to sing Row, Row, Row Your Boat. I didn't know what to teach them. What are the colors? What are the days of the week? The picture down in the bottom is a German student who is learning how to do the beadwork, like the earrings I'm doing, from Elizabeth directly. Next slide. Documentaries. This is part of what Global View does. They've produced 3 documentaries. I was involved in a project in July, the Marathon of Poetry for Peace. And this is the 4th time they've had such a marathon. The idea is reading poetry in dozens of different places in Ecuador and different places in the world. Art, poetry, dancing, painting, all different forms of art to speak peace into being. This is an alternative form of peacemaking. Instead of protesting or yelling or screaming or trying to have a logical argument with somebody who opposes you, what if we sang? What if we read poetry? What if we danced to soften hearts? So I've been named an ambassador for this project. They hope to have an increased presence in this marathon next year. And then in 2026, we hope to go to the United Nations and present this as an alternative form of peace. I will be attending the premiere of the documentary, What Word Will We Be, in October. And we hope to bring it to show here in the Rochester area in March. Next slide, please. How can you help? This will be on a handout. Be part of an immersion experience. I am one of the rare women who will tell how old I am. I am going to be 58 in December. I'm hiking through the rainforest twice a year, right? The only reason that's possible is because we go with a group, and when I can't lift my leg over that log because I'm tired, somebody pulls my leg and picks it up so I can get over the log. We are really trying to target some younger folks, some students. That's why we schedule it during the breaks. But talk to your friends, let them know we're going beginning of January, January 2nd. We want people to come and see this. Subscribe to our newsletter, Walking Together. There will be a sign-up sheet right as you enter into the dining hall. We will send you periodically. I don't get them out monthly because I have a few things going on, but I do send them out periodically, and it's usually 4 or 5 pages of what's going on with these communities. You can buy jewelry from the Cinchi Warming. Grace Baptist Church, your neighbor, is going to feature the jewelry as part of their alternative gift fair just before Thanksgiving, November 24th. But I'm willing to go to different places and sell this jewelry. This is an alternative economy for a community that is trying to discourage people from working with a mining company. Talk to your friends about the program, please. Screen a documentary at your organization. There's 3 different ones. I'm more than happy to let people know, and we can even have the filmmaker, Eloy, speak by Zoom, or we can bring him up here. Support us financially by donating towards trees or t-shirts, the coastal schools, or the program itself. There's information about donating. There's a QR code. There's more information on the sheets. Next slide, please. I love this picture. I love this picture because this was me a year ago. You can't tell, but I was recovering from COVID. And I was in Octavallo. This picture reminds me of the pure joy I get out of this program, out of being around the people of these communities. It is something I didn't see in myself beforehand. It is life-changing. And, of course, a gratuitous picture of my godson, Oliver. I will ask folks to please pray for the people in Ecuador this week, especially. They have 2 different things going on there this week, and I've spent a lot of time doing what I call international chaplaincy remotely. The first thing they have going on is they have the worst drought that they've experienced in 60 years. The clearing of the rainforest and the mining that strips the land has created drier conditions every year. They don't have seasons like we do. They have a wet season and a dry season, but lately it's a dry season and a less dry season. So they have fires. There's over 450 forest fires burning in a very, very small country. This country is really no bigger than Texas. You could have breakfast on the Pacific coast, drive up to the Andes and have lunch, and then drive down to the rainforest for dinner. It is a very small country, so 450 forest fires in that small of a country. Their capital city of Quito was burning yesterday. And I have friends and family there. Oliver is sick. He is very sick from the smoke, and there's no way for him to get away from it. Our contact, Eloy, his parents are not feeling well, and they're in the city of Quito. They really don't have the option of evacuating. So please pray for them on that note, and also the mining companies. Elizabeth will not she will tell people every time she's interviewed about the violence that comes from mining companies. Over the decades, the mining company has committed violence against her community and also created division in her community where one family member is committing violence against another. Her uncle has been killed. She knows pregnant women who have been murdered in this. It is a very severe thing. People in the rainforest, activists, also experience this. And this week, the government has escalated the conflict by siding with mining companies and sending the military into disputed areas. Ecuador in 2008 amended their constitution to give nature rights. And as part of that, they cannot start a mining operation or oil drilling without the consent of the indigenous people that live there. However, corrupt governments like money, and Ecuador has lots of oil, lots of copper, silver, gold, and greed. Greed that comes from up here. There are a contingent of people in Canada right now trying to convince Canada to stop strip mining in Ecuador. This conflict has escalated more than it has in recent years. All my contacts over there have death threats against them. So please pray for them. And pay attention. Pay attention. There's things that we can do. We don't always need the newest phone, right? We can pay attention to what we consume. We can listen. Canadians didn't like how much conflict there was in the Andes, so they sold their mine to the Chinese, right? It's something to pay attention to. Somebody asked me during one of my presentations, well, you're a missionary, when are you converting people to Christ? And I paused for a moment. I said, well, I'm a Christian pastor, and I feel that it is more important to be the gospel out in the world than to try to collect converts like I was keeping score. Most of these folks are Christian already. They don't need me to come in and convert them. And their spiritualities matter. It's a melding that matters. So, yes, I go in, they know I'm Pastora Jennifer when I go in. You're a missionary? No missionary comes out and fishes when there's anaconda in the lake. You're a missionary riding on the back of the truck, up to your knees in mud. That matters when a Christian goes out into the world and does something different. That matters. I also got challenged that, okay, you're talking about the environment enough. You know, yeah, we hear that all the time. Climate change, blah, blah, blah. Protect the environment, blah, blah, blah. Somebody was really challenging me on that. I said, well, here's the thing. The people living in these places, their lives and their social fabric are not separate from the environments they live in. No different than our social fabric is not separate from the environment we live in. We're all connected. People, creation, nature, there's no separation there. I've taken up a lot of time. I appreciate everybody who has come, and I also appreciate Pastor Jesse Lou for the invite. It's really an honor. I have a long connection with this church, and it's just a delight to be back after the last 10 years. We used to do youth group together here. Yes. It was fun. I would like to invite anybody have any questions for me, and I'm more than glad to talk to you during dinner too. But any questions that you're thinking of at the moment?
Pastor Jen, I have a question. Can you define predatory mining? Because we hear about mining all the time, but what is that adjective and what does that mean?
Predatory mining or predatory extraction of resources, whether it's mining or oil or lumber, it is transnational companies that come into a foreign country and they're looking for the resources. They're there for money, and they will do everything in their power, and and they have a lot of lawyers to back them up. They will do everything in their power to consume land. And by predatory mining, I mean 2,000 holes in Elizabeth's community that drained the lagoons. And they didn't have the permission from the people who live there. They only have about 70 people left because it's hard to live in a place that doesn't have water. And as a Baptist, I'm committed to religious freedom. Those lagoons are a place where the women had a ritual where after they bore children, they would take the placenta to the lagoon. They did this for centuries. This was a way to thank Mother Nature, Pachamama, for caring for them, for that abundance. Without the lagoon, there's no ritual. I consider this predatory. When it destroys their lands, it divides their communities. They can no longer survive on the resources that they depend on. Nature provides for them just fine if we don't interfere. It's greed. It's greed from us. It's greed from the Canadians and the Chinese and everybody who goes in there. I will say Chevron owes about $17 billion to the Siapapayan rainforest for poisoning their water and land and all the cancer that resulted from that. $17 billion that Chevron doesn't want to pay. And they can get away with not paying it because they have unlimited resources. They're too big to hold accountable. So that, yes, that's predatory.
Thank you.
Other questions?
All right, can we please thank Pastor Jen for spending this time with us? And as she said, she will be available to answer questions down in the dining room, where I'm anxious to have you enjoy the buffet that we have prepared. One of the dishes?
Yes, one of the dishes is made from mote, which is a corn that is very popular in Ecuador. It's just really big kernels, and they're processed in such a way that you might think it looks like potato. It isn't, it's corn. And so that'll be corn and beans.
All right.
It's good.
So thank you, Jen.